All right, guys, here we are for the second section of this chapter, and we are going to talk about harassment and stalking in specifically. So again, harassment and stalking are very related with bullying. They have a lot of overlap, but but there is kind of a subtle difference, even if there is a lot of that overlap. So harassment and stalking. It can be, there's a lot of different effects that it can have. At its most mild, it's just kind of annoying, right? I don't know if anybody out there has been harassed, but even at the best of times, it's really freaking annoying. Like having somebody obsessed with you and constantly sending you these mean messages, even if you're able to kind of psychologically and emotionally shut it out and not get hurt by it, it still really rapidly becomes super freaking annoying, and that's the best case scenario. At its worst, harassment and stalking makes people fear for their personal safety. Like, there is a disturbing number of stalking incidents, both cyber stalking and real world stalking, that end up with dead victims. Or raped victims, or assaulted victims, or it is not nearly as uncommon as we would hope for stalking to just end with stalking. It's disturbingly common for both cyber stalking and real life stalking to end up with physical confrontations, physical abuse, up to murder and death. So it is a very, very big deal. One of the ways that stalkers are able to find out so much about people, even if they take steps to hide themselves online and keep their online life separate from their personal life, or keep their social media pages and accounts locked down and all those things. One of the tools that stalkers love to use are keyloggers. And we discussed keyloggers back in the malware section. But keyloggers usually come in on some kind of Trojan horse, or if the person has physical access to their devices, they can install those keyloggers. So say it's a boyfriend and girlfriend situation. Boyfriend is controlling and jealous. He may install keyloggers on her computer, laptop, cell phone, whatever, and then she finally breaks up with him, and he is able to use those keyloggers that he installed prior to the breakup to continue stalking her, whether it's in the online world or the physical world. Everything from reading her emails to figuring out where she goes, who she talks to, any new person she's dating, all that kind of stuff can all be found out using these keyloggers. They're a very, very powerful tool for people who want to stalk somebody. So you have to be very careful about those things. Another thing they can do is impersonation, where the stalker will pretend to be the stalkee. In fact, there was a famous case. They actually turned this famous case into a Law and Order SVU episode. I love Law and Order. I usually can't stand any criminal justice themed television shows, but Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Cops, and Law and Order are like the three I'm good with. But there was a Law and Order SVU episode based on a real incident where essentially the short version is boyfriend and girlfriend break up. A few months later, former girlfriend, has a social media account on a fetish website saying that she wants to do consensual non-consent rape play. She wants to have somebody come in and pretend to rape her in her apartment, and she'll be acting and fight back, but he just needs to keep going. So she finds somebody willing to do that for her, and she says, the key will be under the mat. Here's the rough, the how my apartment is laid out. Like, you walk in and there's the hallway and the living room, and I'll be in the bedroom and I'll be, you know, asleep in my bed and blah blah blah, and you come in and you do this, and I will pretend like I don't like it, but it's going to be amazing. And so this actually happens, and come to find out, it wasn't the girl doing that at all. It was the ex-boyfriend who had set her up. So the person who actually performed the rape thought it was completely consensual, had a whole email conversation to show his lawyers that it was consensual. But she obviously had no idea what was going on. It was a real rape for her. So they, I believe in the real world case, they successfully prosecuted the ex-boyfriend who set her up for rape, and he is now serving many, many years in prison, which that's a good thing. So impersonation can be part of that. And then, of course, there's bandwagoning. Bandwagoning is essentially where one person starts harassing somebody, and they get a whole bunch of other people to join in, right? So 4chan or Anonymous is kind of famous for this. I remember there was a case 2-3 years ago, something like that, where somebody on 4chan posted a link to a young girl, she was a teenager, who was streaming a video game. And 4chan members just kept going in there and making these really horrible messages to her, sending really mean stuff. And she was, you know, she started crying on stream, but she kept trying to play these video games that she was trying to play and do these things. But they really, really were harassing her for just hours and hours and hours. And you could tell it really got to her. I saw some of the video, and it was really horrible, horrible stuff. But 4chan is kind of well known for this. In fact, the picture there on the right there is where 4chan, there was a poll online where it's like Mountain Dew said, "What should we name our new flavor?" And so they went in and kind of stuffed the ballot box and got a whole bunch of their people to all go in and say really horrible stuff. I mean, they, you know, the number one there is Hitler did nothing wrong, which is absolutely horrible. But because of this bandwagon effect, you know, somebody suggested doing something horrible, and everybody else was like, yeah, let's do it. And so they became this kind of mob, an online mob that went in and did all these things. Sometimes these are this bandwagon effect can have less damaging consequences. There was a similar vote thing where I think it was Taylor Swift was like, what country should I go to next and perform a concert in? So 4chan went and upvoted North Korea. So North Korea ended up winning this poll about what country should Taylor Swift go to next, which that is not seriously damaging. But something like Hitler did nothing wrong, or harassing somebody who's streaming a video game or some, you know, any other Twitch or YouTube or whatever live stream, that can be serious harassment. So how much harassment and stalking is happening, we don't know. Like bullying, there's a really large range of estimates based on research and how you define it and how, you know, where and when you look and all these things. But basically the consensus is we don't know exactly how much is happening, but we do know the rates are going up. No matter how you define it, no matter where you look, over time it's going up. It's getting worse and worse and worse, which is a big deal. Okay. What can this cause? What are the effects of harassment and stalking? In the best case scenarios, really none, right? A lot of people are able to brush it off, get rid of their harassers, ignore it, that kind of thing. But that really is a best case scenario. And even then, it's just really, really annoying. It's something that nobody really should have to put up with. But similar to bullying, it can cause that emotional or psychological harm. It can cause people to have mental problems. because of the harassment and stalking. It could anything from fear to sadness to depression to anger. Lots of those negative emotions can come out of it, and very serious, high level negative emotions. This is not just, oh, I'm a little bit afraid. This is, no, I'm terrified for my life kind of stuff. Truancy is a big one. Truancy just means children not wanting to go to school or not going to school. So if you're being bullied online, you don't want to go in the real world to where those bullies physically are, right? There was a case, one of the earliest kind of memes on the internet was a kid, early teenage year, 14 or 15, something like that, who he was practicing his lightsaber moves right after Star Wars Episode 1 came out and Darth Maul had that cool double-bladed lightsaber. Well, he filmed himself doing, lightsaber moves with like a broomstick or something. And he was having fun with it. But somebody, I don't remember if he video recorded it himself or one of his friends videoed it or whatever, but that video somehow made it onto the internet, and he was harassed so much. It went viral. It was one of the first things to go viral on the internet. And like everybody saw this video, and it caused him serious, serious, serious problems. He dropped out of school. He was institutionalized. It was a very serious problem for that kid because he was bullied and harassed so much for this, 5 minutes of stupid, him pretending to be a Jedi kind of thing. But, if you're not in school, you can, it's very similar to truancy. You could leave a job, you could leave a church group or a hobby group or whatever. This kind of behavior causes people to not want to be around other people for what I hope are obvious reasons. So they'll stop attending, stop volunteering, stop joining these different groups. And then, of course, in the most severe cases, it can cause suicide. Or in the case of stalking, if the stalker ever takes it to kind of the physical, real-world level, again, it can be assault, it can be rape, it can be murder. It can be lots and lots of different serious effects. So once again, like I said with bullying, harassment and stalking are no joke. They're not, people try to minimize it, and it really shouldn't be minimized. It is a very important subject and a very difficult thing to live with. So maybe the worst part about it is the huge, disturbingly low rate of reporting. People who get bullied or stalked or harassed or any of these things feel like they can't report it because shame, right? They feel like they're ashamed at the behavior, they're ashamed at their reaction, they believe that the harassers or the bullies are correct and they really are a horrible person or a slut or a, whatever words that the bully or harasser is using, or they believe nobody can do anything about it, or they just underreport vastly. If they report it to their parents are also very unlikely to report to police or any kind of authority figure because, again, it's, well, nobody's going to be able to do anything about this. Or, much worse, it's, it's not that big a deal. Well, it is a big deal. It's absolutely a big deal. When this kind of bullying behavior is reported to schools, schools are very unlikely to report it to police. And it's both because of, I don't think they'd be able to do anything about it, and we don't want this to reflect poorly on the school, right? So all of those, both the victims reporting, parents of the victims reporting it, and schools reporting it, need to come up if we're going to do anything seriously about these crimes, because they are serious crimes. There's not a single federal law about cyberbullying, cyber harassment, and cyber stalking. There are many state laws, But those become very complicated to use when the offender and the victim are in two different states. So a federal law would be much easier to, um, in cases where people are in different states, a federal law would be very useful in prosecuting and investigating and dealing with those crimes. But as of right now, they really don't exist. So if you are a victim of harassment or bullying or stalking, I implore you, please, please, please report it. There is probably a state law or some kind that police will be able to use to help you. But don't let it go on, because it's really only going to get worse. Anyway, that is the end of this section. I will see you guys next time.